welcome to the Manic Pixie Dream Vlog. I'm your host, Caroline Georges, and welcome. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about PTSD and about just, I don't know, I think I have self-destructive patterns that, I kind of wanted to start exploring. Because sometimes when, what is it, there's something, okay, so I used to coach for Girls on the Run. Don't tell anyone. I used to coach for this after school program for girls called Girls on the Run. And it's their self-esteem building exercises incorporated with running. So it's girls, jogging, exercising, and playing games that build self-esteem. Okay, so one of the games was like peer pressure. You know what I mean? That was the theme of one of the games, was dealing with peer pressure. So you would have one girl stand at one end of the field with a piece of paper of what she was supposed to say, and what she's supposed to say is like, "Do you want to buy some cigarettes?" And then the other girl would run across the field to the girl, get the note, and would respond, "No, I don't want cigarettes," and then she would run back. Stuff like that. It was a lot of fun. It was very meaningful. I love kids. I do. And I want to volunteer again. I want to volunteer with kids again. I really loved that. It was a lot of fun, and I love children. So that's something I've been thinking about doing again, but at the same time, I don't know, the whole stripper thing, and I'm really open about it. It's not a secret, you know what I mean? I don't know and then also, there are some parents that might just not be comfortable with a former stripper being around their kids. You know what I mean? That's something I have to sort of think about, that how people feel about sex workers, you know what I mean? And when it comes to people's kids, it's people's kids, you know what I mean? And some people might not want a former stripper around their kids, and that's just the way it is. So I've been kind of apprehensive about volunteering with kids for that reason. Maybe after a year or two or something like that, after I've been done with stripping for a year or two or something, maybe then, or I don't know. But anyways, there was one girl on the team who always got into trouble, and she rarely got to come she was rarely in the program because she was in timeout. She would misbehave during school, and they would put her in timeout. And this girl, I just couldn't understand this girl. You know what I mean? She could be having fun with us, having a good time with us doing Girls on the Run, but instead she's in timeout. And so they would just stand her, she would have to stand next to a wall for however long until she could come and join us. And sometimes it'd be for a long time, 20 minutes or something like that, 20 minutes. First, for a kid, that's a long time, you know what I mean, to be in timeout. And it's just I looked at this girl one day, and I just looked at her standing against that wall, and I was just like, holy shit, this girl is learning how to be in jail. This girl is learning about a very broken system that she might very well enter because she's underprivileged, and because the school system is clearly failing her. And I don't know, I think it's just, what do you do? You know what I mean? What do you do about that situation? There was really nothing for me to do in that situation to help the situation. And, but I just think, how have I learned? Okay, so this is the thing. Sometimes I'm working really hard at comedy. I'm working so hard at comedy. It's been really hard. But one of the things about it that's been making it hard is sometimes when I'm working hard and I'm putting my hours in, and I'm doing it, and I'm focusing, and I'm driven, and I'm really going hard on comedy. Going to multiple mics every day. sometimes I feel silly. Like, I feel sort of silly. Like, what am I doing? You know, like, I just feel really silly that I'm working hard. And, you know, and there have been times where I've worked really hard, you know, and there have been times where, you know, I gave so much of myself to a thing, to a person, where you just give so much of yourself to something and then you don't get anything back. And that's been a lot of my relationships. Part of my childhood and part of some of the things that have raised me have been romance, you know? My ex-boyfriend, Jamie, I mean, I don't know, like, he was like my first boyfriend, you know what I mean? My first real boyfriend. And I feel like, in a way, I feel like that, you know, I started dating him when I was 17, and I feel like that in itself was like, he helped raise me a little bit. I would be a different person without him, you know what I mean? And, you know, I always felt like dating is like, it's like a second education, you know what I mean? Like, I talked about dating a Muslim man, you know what I mean? I know a little bit about Islam, and I know a little about Muslim people because I dated somebody who was Muslim, you know what I mean? I got a little glimpse into that world through romance. And, you know, I always felt like romance was something that really defined me a lot, you know? And, but in certain relationships, I put work into relationships. I put affection into relationships. I put my heart into relationships. And I was left sometimes very extremely damaged. You know, my ex-boyfriend who raped me, you know what I mean? The night that happened, I was just looking at him and just dreaming about marrying him. You know what I mean? And my return on that was rape, you know? You know, and it's just like, that little girl who has stood up against a wall, she couldn't envision a world for herself beyond that wall, you know? And if she was in a world beyond that wall, how would she feel? Would she feel comfortable? Would she feel like she belonged? Would she feel like she was doing the right thing when all she ever knew was something of the difference? It was something kind of different than that? But PTSD, it's just, this morning, I mean, my period started and stuff, and I'm really connecting, knowing, like, when I found out I had PTSD, just being diagnosed with PTSD was a huge help, like, that really helped me, just knowing, because it was like, I remember when my therapist told me that I have PTSD, and I was just like, what? I didn't fight numb, you know, like, that's crazy, what? But she explained it to me, and it was just like, oh, so that's why these things are happening in my head all the time, you know what I mean? I'm not crazy. I have a mental illness, a very serious mental illness. And that, I mean, is going to handicap me maybe for the rest of my life. That's going to cause me pain and suffering for perhaps the rest of my life. You know, these are things that I'm going to have to, like, I mean, PTSD, I mean, it's another thing to worry about. It's another thing to thinking about just with a partner. I'm going to have to meet a man who's very understanding. I'm going to have to meet a man who's very patient, you know, and it's that just makes it harder all the more to think about meeting somebody, you know what I mean? Because not all men are patient. Not all men are understanding, you know what I mean? And, but just being diagnosed with PTSD, and, you know, and it's just like, I get these overwhelming images of being hurt, of being seriously, seriously hurt. I mean, imagine being, you know, I mean, I'm sorry, but it's just like, there are videos of me being raped playing in my mind at random. And there are memories of me being violated, and how that made me feel in playing in my mind at random. These feelings, these very old feelings show up again, very, very new. And it's hard, and it's driving me crazy. And and it's just like these feelings, you know what I mean, and how worthless these feelings make you feel, you know what I mean? Because it's like when you're being raped, you feel fucking worthless, and in one of my darkest moments in stripping, I had a bad night. I was like probably like groped by like 3 guys or something like that. I made like very little money for what I had to go through, and I came home and I just felt like a body. Like, that was what was scary. And this is why I'm not threatened by AI. Because, you know what? They're just a fucking body. They have nothing of the things that matter. And I think any human being who's threatened by an AI, I think is very foolish. Of course we would defeat the AIs. But that's neither here nor there. Back to PTSD. I came home after a really bad shift at work. And I just felt reduced to being a whole. Being a body with an orifice. No soul, no love in my heart, no thoughts in my head. That's what I felt reduced to. And I did that to myself by going into that job that night. I did that to myself, that feeling. And men have done that to me. No. Men made me feel that way. Bad men came into that club that night and made me feel that way. Bad men with no money and bad intentions came into that club and made me feel that way. And that's not my fault. I had a job, and that was my job, and I was there to do my job. And men could come in and be nice patrons and respectful patrons, and men came in that night that were not respectful and did not have good intentions and were not very kind to me. And, and it's just like the amount of women that work at strip clubs and what they've already been through just in their childhoods and stuff. Like one of my coworkers, and I think I talked about her before, she was raped by her father when she was 14. She never knew her father. She went to go visit her father in Italy because her father lived in Italy. She met her father for the first time when she was 14, and he raped her. And that woman gets treated like shit at a strip club on a regular basis. Just these little men come in leaving little post-its of reminders, like, just remember this is how you felt when your father raped you. You know what I mean? Let me remind you of that by me treating you like garbage. Yeah, but I just, what am I going to do when I'm working really hard? You know what I mean? What am I going to do to feel good about that all the time? Because I don't always feel good about it all the time. Sometimes I feel super fucking dumb. Like, why do I think I'm worth hard work? Why do I think I'm worth the effort? Why do I think I'm worth something? And the amount of arrogant people in comedy who really think they're worth something, make it really far. You know what I mean? It's been interesting to see that, you know what I mean? Like, the difference between narcissism and confidence in comedy. You know what I mean? Because there's so much of the two. There's a ton of really confident people in comedy. And there's also a ton of really narcissistic people in comedy. And, seeing the difference between people who are super confident and people who are super narcissistic. And I go to open mics sometimes, and and it's a mix of people and a mix of like people with experience. There are comics that are just starting out. There are comics that like should quit immediately. You know what I mean? Who like just don't have a funny bone in their body, and they just should not be doing comedy. And then you have a mix of people who are actually on a professional level who go to open mics. You know what I mean? To hone their craft. And there's this guy. And he's like in his 30s. He's still like kind of a young comic, and he's like, he does performances at the Laugh Factory and stuff. And he went on stage and he bombed. He didn't do good. I don't know. His timing was off. It was a bad room. I mean, that was probably like my third mic that night, so I was a little tired and maybe I wasn't paying attention very much. But he got really offended that nobody was laughing. He got really offended. And he sort of lashed out, and he was like, none of you know what it's like to sell out a sold out show on the weekend. And it's like, well, dude, do you know what it's like? Either, like, I mean, because it's, he's still relatively unknown, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like he's a big name. And I don't know, and it's just like, I don't know. He didn't get laughs, and he wanted to make us feel bad. And I don't feel bad. I'm working really hard. That's all I can do. I can't think about things like selling out a weekend show and set that on the map and go towards it. That's not really what I can do. I can just go to open mics and just get good at comedy. That's all I can do. That's all I can think about doing. That's as simple as it needs to be for me. I can't think about touring. I can't think about, performing, being, I can't think about like things like, oh, that's where I want to be, and this is how I'm going to get there. I can't think about it like that for some reason. I have to think about it just like, the best advice I ever got was from, one of my exes who's a comic, and he tours, and he has a Netflix special and stuff, and he and I dated for about a year, and he really helped me with comedy a lot, kind of like what I was talking about before. Dating has always been an education for me, and dating a comedian when I first started comedy actually kind of was really helpful. And his advice to me was just be funny, just be good. And if you're funny and you're good, people are going to book you. It's as simple as that. And, and that really helped me. Now I can think about things that way, and it makes things a lot easier. But it's just hard feeling worthless all the time and pursuing something so grand it's considered by most to be delusional. Being a comedian. I don't know. This is why I believe in God. You have to live your life by faith. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how things are going to be. I don't know how things are going to end for me. Things might very well end very tragically for me. No man, no career, no baby. And I die alone by myself at my own hands. That's what I see happening all the time. And if I see that happening all the time, does that mean that that's the pinpoint on the map for me? And that's where I'm going. Because, again, this is why I believe in God. All I can do is pray that that doesn't happen. That despite all this turmoil, God, maybe there is something good for me at the end of this, you know? Because when I'm having PTSD and I'm on my period, I don't feel like it is, you know? I don't feel like there is. But I'm going to 3 open mics today. I have to clean my apartment. I've just been putting off cleaning. I'm such a bad cleaner. I let my place get so messy sometimes, and so I'm gonna clean today, and so I'm not gonna do more than 3 mics today. And but yeah. But then again, things like taking care of myself and stuff. How do I expect to take care of a man when I can't even take care of myself sometimes? How do I expect myself to take care of a baby when I can't even take care of myself sometimes? How do I expect to make a man feel worthwhile and empowered and amazing when I can't even make myself feel that way sometimes? And how am I going to raise a baby to feel good about themselves when I don't feel good about myself all the time? But anyways, that's my vlog for today. Oh, you know, there was something I wanted to elaborate on. I wanted to talk a little bit about why it's hard being a woman in comedy. So one thing that I've stopped doing is I get not heckled, but like people, when I go on stage and I do material about stripping or I tell stories about stripping, you know, I get like riffed on a lot on stage at open mics. And which is fine. People have a right to say whatever they want. Sometimes it's kind of offensive and dirty and makes me uncomfortable and stuff, but that's just like, it's comedy. Comedy's not nice. And if I'm going to go on stage and talk about stripping, I just have to accept that there's going to be some immature, some really not nice comics in the audience. You know what I mean? Who think they can get laughs by being mean. Or by being shocking. Or by being, you know. And there was one day I was hosting, and the comics made me cry. I literally had to go to the bathroom and cry. Like, this guy got on stage and was like, oh, so when you were a stripper, they touched you, right? Like, it was just like, what the fuck, dude? Like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? And then and then again, PTSD, hello, you know what I mean? So, like, then that brings up a memory of, like, you know, yeah, like being raped in a VIP, you know what I mean? And that, how horrifying that was, and how, like, you know, that moment of fear echoing in my mind forever. And I'm teleported back to that moment emotionally forever, you know, and it's just, and so that was kind of, so that was a little like, okay, no. And I was just like, no, dude, I'm not doing this with you. Don't do this. Just continue with your set. And that's what I said. And then, I don't know, like, people got a little, like, thought I was being a bitch, and I was not happy with him saying that. Did not respond well to him saying that. I was being really pissy towards him when he said that. And I was like, dude, continue with your set. I'm not doing this with you. And this was me hosting. And I got really defensive. And I was just like, you know, the whole thing. And then the other comics got a little triggered, like, oh, she's silencing a comic, she's being a bitch, and stuff like that. So, and I was the only girl there. I mean, the thing is that, like, everyone's like, oh, women aren't as funny as men and stuff, and women aren't getting booked as much as men. But there are really not as many women comics going out there trying comedy and working hard in comedy as there are male comics doing that. You know what I mean? So it's like there's a lot of open mics that I go to where I'm the only girl. And there'll be a room full of men. That happens quite often because women just aren't doing comedy as much as men are. And, but anyways, that's neither here nor there. So anyways, every male comic that got on stage started doing really nasty shit about stripping. Started talking really nasty shit about stripping. They were like riffing jokes about stripping. They were like, I mean, one guy got on stage and was like, I hate strippers and stuff. And that was when I was like, okay, this is like an attack. This is crazy. And I went to the bathroom and I cried. And Joe, my boss, got on stage and was just like, knock this shit off, guys. What the fuck is wrong with you? And I came back. I hosted the rest of the show. It was all fine. Everyone apologized. It was all good. But still, that is the example I have for you today, why it's kind of hard being a woman in comedy. You know, it really is. Women, I know that like it's like when women are like, oh, you're so brave because you talk about sex and sexuality and comedy and stuff like that. And it's like, you know what? There is nothing more true than that. And I feel like women get sort of judged for complaining about why it's really hard being in this industry when things like this make it really hard to be in this industry. And because it's like men aren't, I don't think a man has ever been through that. I don't think a man has ever been hosting a comedy show and somebody triggers his PTSD, and then every single comic that goes on after that comic that triggered his PTSD goes on stage and elaborates more on this very subject that triggered his PTSD, you know what I mean, in order to like attack the host, you know what I mean? I just don't think a male comic has ever been through that. I'm sorry, I just don't think he ever has. And I have. And it's like, you know, in comedy, I'm so grateful for the thick skin, the new set of thick skin that I've gotten from being in comedy and stuff. I'm so grateful for it. You know what I mean? Let people say what they're going to say. It doesn't have to define you. It doesn't have to matter to you. It doesn't have to mean anything to you. And, you know, and I would wish this for everyone. I would wish this for everyone. And I just, you know, knowing what I have because of comedy and that thick skin that I have for words because of comedy and stuff. And I think about social justice warriors who shake in their boots whenever they hear a bad word. You know what I mean? And I just feel so bad for them. I just feel so fucking bad for them. I do. I feel bad for them. Like that they can't handle words. That's a strength they don't have. But anywho, yeah, making good choices. I just have to make the right choices every hour of every day. You know what I mean? I just have to go to open mics every chance I get, you know what I mean? And just get funny and just get good. And that's all I have to focus on. And that's all I can focus on. And maybe that's the way it should be for people who have trauma or people who struggle with their self-esteem. Just do what you need to do. Just do the things that you need to do, and you don't have to think about the outcome. And just have faith that it'll all turn out okay. Anyways, that's my vlog for today. Like and subscribe and share. Bye.